The rain came down in sheets that November morning, the kind of rain that feels like the sky itself is weeping. Sarah Mitchell stood at the grocery store checkout, counting crumpled dollar bills with trembling fingers, her 7-year-old daughter, Emma, shivering beside her in a jacket 2 sizes too small. The cashier's eyes held that look. Sarah had grown to recognize a mixture of pity and impatience that made her stomach twist with shame. She was $3 short. $3 that might as well have been 3,000. "I'm sorry," Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible above the beeping scanners and muzak. "I'll have to put something back." Emma's small hand squeezed hers, and Sarah felt her heart crack a little more. This wasn't how life was supposed to be. 2 years ago, they'd had a home, security, a future. Then came the diagnosis, stage 3, breast cancer, followed by the medical bills that piled up faster than autumn leaves. Her husband couldn't handle it. He left on a Tuesday, took the car and their savings, and never looked back. Now here she stood, a college-educated woman with a business degree, choosing between bread and milk because she couldn't afford both. "I've got it." The voice came from behind them, soft but firm. Sarah turned to see a woman, perhaps in her 60s, with silver-streaked hair pulled into a loose bun and eyes that crinkled at the corners. She was already pulling bills from her worn leather wallet. "Oh, no, I couldn't," Sarah began, but the woman was already handing money to the cashier. "Please," the older woman said, looking directly at Sarah with an intensity that stopped all protest. "Let me." As the cashier processed the payment, the woman knelt down to Emma's level. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Emma," the little girl replied shyly. "That's a beautiful name. I had a daughter named Emma once." The woman's voice caught slightly, but her smile remained. "She would have been about your age now, if," she trailed off, then stood up, blinking rapidly. Sarah felt tears burning behind her own eyes. "Thank you so much." "I don't know what to say. If you give me your address, I promise I'll pay you back as soon as—" The woman shook her head. "No need. Just promise me something. When you're able, when you're back on your feet, help someone else who needs it. That's all the payment I need." "I will," Sarah promised, clutching the grocery bags to her chest. "I swear I will." The woman smiled, squeezed Sarah's shoulder gently, and walked away. Sarah never even got her name. That encounter became a turning point. Though Sarah wouldn't fully understand it for months, the stranger's kindness planted something. Deep inside her, a determination not just to survive, but to become someone who could extend that same grace to others. She started attending free career workshops at the public library, spending nights after Emma fell asleep updating her resume, applying for positions, refusing to give up even when rejection emails filled her inbox. 6 months later, Sarah landed a job as an administrative assistant at a small nonprofit that provided support services for cancer patients. The pay wasn't much, but it was steady, and it came with health insurance. More importantly, it gave her purpose. She threw herself into the work, staying late to help clients navigate insurance paperwork, making phone calls to connect people with resources, remembering what it felt like to be desperate and alone. A year passed, then 2. Sarah got promoted to program coordinator. Emma started 3rd grade wearing a new jacket that actually fit. They moved into a small but clean apartment. Sarah's cancer remained in remission. Life wasn't perfect, but it was theirs, and they'd built it together from nothing. It was a Tuesday afternoon, 3 years to the day, since her husband had left when Sarah saw her. The woman from the grocery store, looking frailer now, sitting in the nonprofit's waiting room with paperwork clutched in her, shaking hands. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. "Mrs. Patterson?" The receptionist called out, reading from a clipboard. The woman stood slowly, wincing with pain, and Sarah found herself moving forward without thinking. "Mrs. Patterson? I'm Sarah Mitchell, the program coordinator. I'll be helping you today." Recognition flickered across the older woman's face, followed by surprise, then something that looked almost like relief. "You," she whispered. "The woman from the store." "Yes," Sarah said, her voice thick with emotion. "Please come back to my office." As Mrs. Patterson settled into the chair across from Sarah's desk, the story came tumbling out. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. No family left. Her husband had passed 5 years ago. Her daughter had died in a car accident at age 7, nearly 30 years past. She'd been living off a modest pension, but the medical bills were drowning her. She'd come to the nonprofit as a last resort. Having heard they sometimes helped people find financial assistance, Sarah listened, her heart breaking and mending simultaneously, understanding now the deep well of grief from which that grocery store kindness had been drawn. Mrs. Patterson had lost everything, yet she'd still found it in her heart to help a stranger. "Mrs. Patterson," Sarah said quietly, "do you remember what you told me that day? You said to help someone else when I got back on my feet." The older woman nodded, her eyes glistening. "You gave me more than $3 that day. You gave me hope when I had none. You saw me, really saw me when I felt invisible. And I've been trying to pay that forward every single day since." Sarah paused, pulling out her phone. "Now it's my turn to see you." Over the next 3 hours, Sarah made calls, filled out forms, connected dots. She reached out to every contact in her network, leveraged every relationship she'd built. By the time Mrs. Patterson left that evening, Sarah had secured emergency financial assistance to cover 2 months of bills, connected her with a palliative care program that would provide in-home support, and arranged for a volunteer driver service to take her to medical appointments. But it didn't stop there. Sarah couldn't let it stop there. That night, after putting Emma to bed, Sarah sat at her laptop and wrote. She wrote about a woman who'd shown kindness to a stranger, about the ripple effects of compassion, about how one small act could change the trajectory of a life. She wrote about Mrs. Patterson's situation, careful to respect her privacy but honest about her needs. She posted it to a local community forum, then went to bed, not expecting much. She woke to hundreds of messages. People wanted to help. Some offered money, others offered services, free meals, house cleaning, yard work. A retired nurse volunteered to visit weekly. A local church group organized a fundraiser. The response was overwhelming, beautiful, and entirely unexpected. Within a week, Mrs. Patterson had enough. Financial support to cover her medical expenses for the next 6 months. She had a network of volunteers ensuring she never had to face an appointment alone. She had meals delivered 3 times a week. The community had wrapped around her like a warm blanket, all because Sarah had shared her story. Sarah visited Mrs. Patterson every Tuesday after work, often bringing Emma along. The little girl would sit at the older woman's kitchen table, working on homework while Sarah helped with bills or simply sat and talked. Mrs. Patterson became the grandmother Emma had never known, and Emma became the living echo of the daughter Mrs. Patterson had lost. One evening, about 2 months after their reunion, Mrs. Patterson took Sarah's hand in her own paper-thin grip. The cancer was winning. They both knew it. Her voice was weak, but her words were clear. "I need to tell you something," she said. "That day in the grocery store, I almost didn't stop. I'd been having a particularly dark morning, thinking about my Emma, wondering what the point of going on was. Then I saw you and your daughter, and something in me just sparked. Helping you helped me, don't you see? You gave me purpose again, even if only for a moment. And now look at what you've built from that moment. Look at all these people caring for each other." Tears streamed down Sarah's face. "You saved my life that day, and you saved mine right back, dear girl. That's how it works. That's how we survive this world, by saving each other over and over again." Mrs. Patterson passed away peacefully 3 weeks later, surrounded by the community that had embraced her, with Sarah holding one hand and Emma holding the other. At her funeral, the small church was packed with people, the volunteers who'd helped her, the neighbors who'd brought meals, the donation recipients from the nonprofit, and dozens of others whose lives Sarah had touched through her work. All of them part of an ever-expanding circle of compassion that had begun with $3 in a grocery store checkout line. Sarah stood to speak, Emma beside her, and looked out at the sea of faces. "Mrs. Patterson once told me to pay forward the kindness she'd shown me," she began, her voice steady despite her grief. "What I didn't understand then was that kindness isn't a debt to be repaid. It's a gift to be multiplied. Every person here is proof of that. We're all connected by the simple choice to see each other, to help each other, to love each other even when it's hard." After the service, a young woman approached Sarah, a baby on her hip and uncertainty in her eyes. "I heard your story," she said quietly, "about the grocery store. I'm in a situation similar to where you were. I was wondering, could your nonprofit help me?" Sarah smiled through her tears and pulled out her card. Yes, we can. Come see me on Tuesday." As she watched the woman walk away, Sarah felt Mrs. Patterson's presence like a warm hand on her shoulder. The circle continued, expanding outward in ways neither of them could have imagined, all because one woman had chosen kindness on a rainy November morning, and another had chosen to honor that gift by passing it forward. Years later, Sarah would tell Emma, now a teenager volunteering at the same nonprofit, that every person carries the power to change a life. It doesn't take wealth or fame or extraordinary circumstances. It takes only the willingness to see another person's humanity, to extend a hand when someone is falling, to recognize that in saving others, we somehow save ourselves. The rain still falls on November mornings. But now when Sarah stands in checkout lines, she watches. She looks for the trembling hands, the counted coins, the exhausted parents trying to hold it together for their children. And when she sees them, she steps forward. "I've got it," she says softly, pulling out her wallet. "Let me help." Because that's what Mrs. Patterson taught her. That's what she taught them all. We survive by saving each other, over and over again, one small act of kindness at a time, rippling outward into infinity, connecting us all in the most profoundly human way possible through the simple, radical act of caring for one another. And somewhere in the space between memory and hope, Sarah imagines Mrs. Patterson smiling, knowing that her legacy isn't measured in dollars or years, but in the countless lives touched by a kindness that refused to end, a light that continues to shine in the darkness, a reminder that we are never truly alone as long as we choose to see each other with compassionate eyes. Her story, their story, our story, all woven together by the golden thread of humanity at its very best.